מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to Congregation Ormi, especially if it's your first time here ever or just in a long while, and welcome to those participating from home via our live stream. We begin our service together on page 1 where it says, I am Israel. All the generations before exist within me. All are present at this moment. Dwellers in tents and tenements, weavers, tailors, bankers, physicians, beggars dozing in a sunny corner, fruit sellers freezing in the market square, mothers and fathers in a tangled chain, all those who studied the Torah, all those who settled the land, all those who were crammed into steerage, who broke the glass and circumcised their sons, 600,000 who stood at Sinai, 6 million souls who perished. Abraham, my father, Sarah, my mother, Joseph, my brother, Miriam, my sister, Moses, my teacher. Their voices speak in me. I am Israel. And we continue in the middle of page 3 with because of you. Without you, there would be no me. I am everything reflected in your eyes. I am everything approved by your smile. I am everything born of your guidance. I am only me because of you. And I'd like to invite up Susan Miller to light our Shabbat candles on page 4. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. At this point in our service, we think of the week that has passed, and we hold on to all of the good things from this past week. So if you had an experience that inspired gratitude, if you have some good news to share, no matter how big or how small, I invite you to share that joy with the community now. Marcy?
If it wasn't said last week, we got the second FEMA grant for $11,250.
So Mazel Tov to our whole community, and special thanks to Marcy for helping us get the FEMA grants.
Anyone wants to help, give me a call.
Yeah. Yeah, Sarah?
My wife Maggie turned 30. 30s are the power decades.
Awesome. Happy birthday, Maggie. And a belated Mazel Tov on your wedding.
Thank you.
Susan?
Both Nathan and Seth, in the same
Mazel tov. That's great news. Dave?
Lisa and Ed Tepper and Steve Gregg are having an art show opening at the Richmond Public Library, and I think it's Thursday. It's on Facebook, so there's a nice stuff to check it out.
So awesome. So glad to hear about the upcoming art show. Yeah, Kate?
I have a first nephew in my family, Connor. He was born in Hong Kong 2 weeks ago.
Mazel tov on your nephew. So we thank God for all of these blessings, including the blessing of simply being alive for this moment in time. The words of Shehechianu near the top of page 5. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen. And we continue together with the responsive reading on page 6. For our ancestors, the seventh day was a sign of their covenant with God. They kept it faithfully. When their lives were embittered, Shabbat brought them sweetness. When their lives were peaceful, Shabbat deepened their joy. We speak many words, but few that remind us of the covenant. Let us emerge from this Sabbath renewed in our quest for wholeness, reawakened to the urgent beauty of being present in a God-filled world. And we continue with Lecha Dodi on page 7. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Hishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, V'shemo tiferet v'litila. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki hi mekor habracha, Merosh mikedem nesucha, Sof maaseh b'machshava tchila. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, hitoreri, Ki va'orech kumi ori, Uri, uri, shir daberi, Kivod Adonai alaich nigla. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela. We rise together and face the entrance to symbolically welcome in the presence of Shabbat. V'shalom ateret ba'ala, Gam besimcha u'betzola, toch emune yam segula, boi chala, boi chala. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela. We continue on page 8 with praying together. Long ago, King David said to the community of Israel, "Now bless the Eternal, your God." And the whole congregation blessed the Eternal, God of their mothers and fathers, and bowed their heads low. Now, in the presence of community, in pursuit of the sacred, in gratitude and awe, we too bow before the infinite. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Barechu et Adonai. We continue with Ma'ariv Arabim. As new generations come and go, the world remains largely the same. The sun rises and sets each day. Winds blow according to their set patterns. Seas flow as if following a diagram, drawn carefully by God's own steady hand. Every night, constellations assume their positions in the sky, faithfully reminding us that what has been will be again, for each generation to enjoy. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. We continue with the Shema on the bottom of page 9. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Please be seated. Continue on page 10. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. Ani Adonai Elohechem. And we continue on page 11 with the responsive reading. Precious is the light by which we gaze upon the past, and blessed are the journeys of those who came before us. Blessed is the wisdom of sages and prophets who taught our ancestors the life of holiness. Let justice well up like water, righteousness like an unfailing stream. Out of violence and brokenness came prayers of healing, a religion of renewal, joy, and compassion. Inspired by their journeys of determination and love, may we find our own ways of marching to the promised land. We'll continue with Mi Chamocha, page 12. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya la la ya la la la. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef elem, nora tehilot osef elem. And we continue with Vishamru at the bottom of page 12. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. We continue with the responsive reading on the top of page 13. Our God and God of the generations before us, we long to feel close and connected to you. You are the lasting memory of sages and students, of prophets and priests. We know you today as the voice of kindness within us. We know you also as the constant hope that lives in our heart. You are the sacred presence that connects everything. You are the one who creates and protects all life. Please rise for our central prayer, the Amidah, the bottom of page 13. Sefatai tiftachu fi agitehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare you. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocher Chastei Avot ve'imahot, Umevi geula livnei b'neihem leman shemo b'yahava melech ozer u'moshia u'magin Baruch atah Adonai magin Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah Kagibor le'olam Adonai mechayei hakol atarav lehoshia mechalkel chayim bechesed Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim verofech holim, umatir asurim, umekaye memunato, lishenei afar, michamocha ba'al gevurot, umido melach, Melech memit u'mechaye u'matzmeach Yeshua v'ne'eman ata l'chayot ha'akol Baruch atah Adonai mechaye ha'akol. Please be seated. We continue with a quiet moment for personal prayer or reflection. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata Lechol hashalom, shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha tasim leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael. Bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. At this point in our service, we think of loved ones who are in need of healing. Tonight, we think especially of Beth Levine, Rabbi Jerry Levy, Elaine Rigoni, Jean Sanders, Robert Signer, Russ Jennings, and Rusty Olshine. Are there other loved ones whose healing we wish to pray for tonight? With the power of community, we pray for their refuah shlema, their complete healing of body and or spirit, with the words of Misha Berach found at the top of page 18. Misha Berach avoteinu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu, mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. So this week's Torah portion is called Chaye Sarah, which literally means the life of Sarah. And this name is a bit misleading. Based on the Torah portion's name, bless you, we might expect to read a comprehensive summary of Sarah's life. But the portion focuses not on Sarah's life, but on Abraham's actions after her death. First, he purchases a burial plot. Then, as he reflects on what it means to lose his wife and the mother of his son, Abraham realizes that his son Isaac is not only missing his mother, but also lacking a wife. Isaac is a grown man at this point, but has not had the same opportunities and experiences that his father had. So I want to focus on this aspect of the Torah portion tonight in a discussion about parenthood and the connections between people of different generations. So the first question, and I'll reiterate it, so just listen the first time. Have you ever had a moment like Abraham where you realized that your child was lacking something that you had? So for example, Abraham realized that he knew the joys of having a wife, but Isaac did not. And that led him to find a wife for Isaac right away. So kind of the second time around, have you noticed children, whether your own child or just members of the next generation, lacking something that had been an important part of your own life or a given for your own generation? So Lisa's going to help us out tonight by bringing the microphone. Yeah. It's on and ready to go. That way people participating from home can hear the brilliance of all of your comments. Does anyone want to hear the question one more time?
Sure.
Okay, and if it's an awful question, just say skip it, we'll go to the next one. But have you noticed children, whether your own child or just members of the next generation, lacking something that had been an important part of your own life or a given for your own generation?
Okay, since I'm here with my child, right? Told him I wouldn't embarrass him, though. But I just was thinking about that, Rabbi, when you asked the question. So growing up, I grew up in a conservative synagogue, so even though it only kind of lasted through the bat mitzvah age, and then it was adrift, but my son Alex, who's here with me, and some of you may know he's preparing for a COVID-delayed bar mitzvah. So we've been trying to come to services with, reasonable frequency. And so that was something that he was lacking before, but is no longer lacking, thanks to you all.
So, wonderful example. That's a lot like Abraham. So you had that same realization of, this was an important moment in my life of having that bat mitzvah. we're not going to let this pandemic stop my son from having a similar moment. It might be a little delayed, but we're going to make this happen for him too.
I find children today, and I have a 9-year-old who's usually with me, they don't know how to speak to adults. And I know when growing up, it was really taught how to speak with adults or speak with other people. They don't have I won't even call them manners, but they really don't. They're lacking in some sense that kind of manners and learning how to speak to other generations.
Mm-hmm. So there may be a lack of guidance on generational differences. So kids will just default to what they know with their peers, which is informal and not showing the sort of respect that you may have been expected to show to elders when you were the same age. Mm-hmm. We've got 2 over here.
One of the things, when we were growing up, as children, we organized our own types of ball games and playing outside, and it seems like we've gotten away from that where everything is organized. But I've noticed with COVID, kids are outside playing by themselves and figuring out how to organize themselves without having to go to an organized soccer game or football game. They're doing it themselves, so that's a good thing.
So in some ways, they were lacking the freedom, but because it was replaced with so much structure. But ironically, when we lost so much, the children gained a certain freedom to take that initiative and have their own little soccer game on the street. Yeah.
Well, when I grew up, we were very innocent, and we didn't have any fear, and we rode our bikes everywhere, and maybe we were naive, but our parents, my parents, they didn't know where I was. We didn't have cell phones. Things were totally different, and it started changing maybe with my kids, but especially my grandkids. I mean, you can't let them go out and play by themselves, and it's a different world.
So maybe children are lacking a little bit of the independence that children used to have because we've got all these devices to know where they are at all times. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. I just feel like the kids today don't have that resilience that we had, and a little bit more of that grit and resilience to just overcome things and, let them fall down, and the blessing of a skinned knee and those kind of important lessons.
Mm-hmm. And Marilyn has her hand up.
I'm going to bring a downer note about the kids being aware now that we are in a crisis, a climate crisis, and they see the craziness of our politics. And I think there's this real fear that this younger generation now is dealing with, and they don't have the confidence in their seniors that we're going to fix things. And we always felt confident that our lives would be happy and serene. So maybe lacking that security and confidence that everything's going to work out. Sort of as Dave mentioned, right? As children, he and his peers felt that they were safe. They could just go bike anywhere and they'd be fine. And a lot of children live with a lot more fear that not everything is going to work out, that there's a lot of danger and risk in this world. So the next question is, so here's kind of the lead up to it. When Abraham realized that Isaac was lacking a wife, he sent his servant to find a suitable wife for Isaac, who turned out to be the woman described in this Torah portion, a very kind, intelligent, gracious woman named Rebecca from their homeland. So the second question is, would you want or have wanted your parents to help you find a spouse? Why or why not? I'm hearing a lot of no's. Maybe they're helping by staying out of the way. Yeah.
I used to be extremely adamant about the answer to this question. I thought it was preposterous that people had arranged marriages. But as I have gotten older and I have seen how little you know about your spouse when you actually make that commitment and how things change, I've thought there are some cultures, I'm thinking particularly of, my Indian friends or colleagues who had arranged marriages. And I thought, this is just crazy. How do they let that happen? But I realized that actually those families all knew each other. There was deep knowledge in the community about who might be good for each other and how it would work. And that was probably just as good as the flip of the coin that the rest of us have done, and our young people are doing now by swiping back and forth on some sort of, app. So I'm not so adamant about it being a bad idea.
Okay, so possibly a little bit open to the idea.
I think my parents probably would have done a pretty decent job, honestly, if they'd tried to find me a mate. I'm glad that I made that decision myself because it could have gone a very different direction, but I feel like they would have put their best into it, and they know me really well. So it couldn't have been like super disastrous, but it might not have been as fulfilling as the arrangement that I found. So,
Jacqueline and then Dave.
I kind of agree because I think your parents do know you well, maybe better than you know yourself at 18 when you may have met the person that you married. So my thought to the question is very much like yours. You would think no, but there is something to be said for your family knowing what may be good for you.
My dad served 4 years overseas in the South Pacific in the 5th Air Force. And came back, met my mom, and they were set up by my aunt and uncle. They met in Pittsburgh, and my dad was still in the Air Force, so they were, even though he was done with his combat time, they were shipping him out to Texas. So they knew each other 7 days, and they got married, and they had 5 kids and a wonderful marriage and strong business, and until the day my mom died, they were together. So, you just never know.
And then the third and final question for our discussion tonight is, what do you think is the most precious thing that a parent can give to a child or one generation can give to another? What's been most helpful to you? What do you strive to give to the next generation? Yeah, Jacqueline?
I recently found out the power to listen and not to speak.
Yeah, John?
Stories.
Stories.
Stories. History, memory.
How about loving them enough and trusting them enough to allow them to live their own lives, even if it means sometimes making mistakes, but learning from them and learning who they are and what they are. I think that's a form of unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the ability to feel empathy.
So I'm hearing a lot about kind of social and emotional skills, empathy, listening, acceptance, support, a sense of groundedness, knowing your history. Yeah. Michael?
I would also say a strong moral compass, being able to stand up for what's right and not to take the easy way out, and to teach good from bad, and to help others when they need it. And that falls in line with empathy as well.
Yeah, Sarah?
This is a bit tongue-in-cheek, but I will say that one of the best things that I got from my parents was a toolbox, and one of the best things that they probably got from us were all of the things that we made when we were children. So the idea that you're constantly creating for the other generation, and giving a piece of yourself.
Mm-hmm. So some reciprocity. Well, thank you all for participating, and thank you so much to Lisa for empowering everyone with the microphone. You can hear each other's voices. So there's a reading that will come back to Thanksgiving weekend about mitzvot, or obligations that parents have for their children. This didn't make it into the Talmud. It made it into this kind of leftover collection called the Tosefta, which means additional stuff. But the rabbis are trying to figure out what exactly does one generation owe to the next, especially parents to their own children. So what are the mitzvot that a father must do for a son? The answer: to circumcise him, redeem him if he's the firstborn son, teach him Torah, teach him a vocation, find him a wife. And there are also those who say teach him to swim in the river. And one rabbi is so passionate about giving your child job skills that Rav Yehuda says, anyone who doesn't teach his son a vocation teaches him thievery. So giving them life skills, right? A literal toolbox so they can go out and become a carpenter or make beautiful art, right? And gifts for others. We see Abraham does many of these things for his son Isaac in this Torah portion. He specifically finds him a wife, but in the past we saw that he was the first father to begin this covenant of circumcising his son and trying to guide him, teaching a bit of Torah, and maybe some life skills. We see that Abraham digs wells, and then Isaac also digs wells, so that may be kind of a job skill that he passed along to his son. But I encourage us all to think about not just our own children and grandchildren, but really what we can all do to help guide the next generation, especially in light of the fear that they may have about climate change or any of the other scary things going on in our world. What guidance and sense of security and rootedness and support can we give them on a daily basis and throughout our lives? So with that, we can conclude our discussion. I'd like to invite up Lisa again to share some announcements on behalf of the board.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. And an extra welcome to those who are joining us for the first time tonight. We're so glad you're here. Okay, so tomorrow night at 6:30, the second annual Havdalloween in the parking lot. Lori and John Weinberg are leading this. Masks are required, costumes are optional, but encouraged. Monday, November 1st is book club, 7 p.m. over Zoom. The book is 3 Floors Up, a novel by Eshkol Nevo. The basis for the Cannes, I've never known how to pronounce that, Film Festival's Palme d'Or nominated film. It's set in an upper middle class Tel Aviv apartment building. This best-selling and warmly acclaimed Israeli novel examines the interconnected lives of its residents, whose turmoils, secrets, unreliable confessions, and problematic decisions reveal a society in the midst of an identity crisis. Sounds interesting. Tuesday, November 2nd, Election Day. Be sure to vote if you haven't already. Next Sunday, November 7th, couple things going on all day and especially 4 p.m. It's the Global Day of Jewish Learning, hosted by the JCC via Zoom. Rabbi Ahuva will be leading a session about conversion to Judaism at 4 p.m. Check your email for the Zoom link. And also Sunday, November 7th, is the Crop Hunger Walk to raise funds to address hunger in developing countries as well as in Richmond. This year's walkathon will be in person with the option of walking alone as a family unit or in small socially distanced groups anytime between November 7th and November 14th, as is convenient. And there's a link in the weekly email to register. The planned walk is just over 3 miles, starting at Shalom Farms on the north side. And if you have questions, Marilyn Breslow, our social action chair, is here, so you could talk to her. And Tuesday, November 9th at 7 p.m. at Oremy, in person, the Risk Community Problem Assembly. They'll be voting on which issue to tackle this year as an interfaith community. And those are all of mine, but I believe Marilyn has something she wants to share about refugees.
Hi, I've been talking about the welcome of the Afghani refugees, and I keep waiting for the starting bell. And I guess the bell has rung, and there are now 173 Afghanis that are under the care of the International Rescue Committee, and these are 48 family units. And 28 of these, so probably over 100 people, are still in hotels. They need assistance with housing and then assistance in progressing along in their resettlement. So we need to get organized so we can wrap our arms around one of these families. So I'd like to know, how many folks would like to attend an orientation. We don't have a date yet. So the idea is sign the people up, give them a little background on the responsibilities. We're asking folks to undergo a background check and commit to visiting the family on a regular basis, but to be organized, that one person would take the lead and be the liaison with the agency. So they're anxious to get started. We're anxious to get started. So we're going to put something out in the weekly mailing so you can sign up if you are interested, and then we'll get an orientation going. So the time is now. And if you have any leads on affordable housing on the bus line, that's the first step. Affordable housing on the bus line, safe neighborhood. So, but we're also looking for donated vehicles. If anybody has a car that they're ready to upgrade in this wonderful car market that we have right now. That would be appreciated.
All right. Thank you, Marilyn, and thank you, Lisa. We continue our service on page 20 with Aleinu. Please rise for the Aleinu prayer. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gdula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzah, velo samanu kemishpachot adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yihyeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. At this point in our service, we think of loved ones who have passed away recently or at this time in years past. Tonight we remember with love the yahrzeits of Milton Goldsmith, grandfather of David Goldsmith, William Greenberg, grandfather of Lisa Halberstadt, Frederick Lanke, father of Beth Meixner, B. Abuela Napolitano, mother of James Napolitano, Mildred Preville, mother-in-law of Sheila Preville, Harris Snyder, father of Jane Katz, Joyce Weiner, mother of Jacqueline Weiner, and Frontis Burbank Wiggins, Jr., father of Joanne Wiggins. Are there other loved ones we wish to remember tonight? Zichronam livracha, may their memories always be a blessing. We continue standing in honor of their memories with the Mortar's Kaddish together on page 21. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, b'alma divrach yute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam olomei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha b'richu, le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort for all who are bereaved, and let us say amen. Please be seated. And we conclude our service tonight with one we haven't done in a long time, Adon Olam on page 23. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you to Marcy for playing piano tonight. If you would kindly return your service to the table near the entrance. And we will be in the back area of the classroom space for Kiddush and Motzi tonight. So Shabbat Shalom.